Tony Stark is perhaps one of the world's greatest heroes. Growing up as a genius, he lost both of his parents at a very young age. He turned that trauma into a force for good, using his genius to create weapons designed to defend his country. When he discovered that his weapons were being used for other purposes, he escaped his own kidnapping, and he shut it down to create the Iron Man defense armor and focus on clean energy. He's defeated multiple villains, granted, many of whom were created by his own arrogance, and most importantly has defended Earth from multiple threats who promised its demise. He helped oversee the creation of the Avengers, and even brought heroes such as War Machine and Spider-Man to life. At the end of the day, he was willing to sacrifice his own life so that the world would be safe, when he snapped his fingers holding all 6 Infinity Stones. He invented time travel so that the Avengers could reverse the most despicable thing a villain has done to date. Needless to say, Tony Stark becoming Iron Man may have had a few negative outcomes, but on the whole made the world a much better place. Tony was an inspiration, but what would the world look like without him taking on the mantle he has become synonymous with? Who would take his place as a hero, a genius, and even a force for good? As we saw, there exists out there in the cosmos some universe where Steve, in fact, did not become Captain America. Peggy took his place as the world's first super soldier and became Captain Carter in her own right. However, a spirit like Steve's is an asset that cannot just be thrown aside. Once Captain Carter led a successful mission to take the Tesseract from Hydra scientist Arnim Zola, it fell into the hands of Howard Stark and the US government. Like son, like father, I believe, is how the saying goes. With this incredible source of power, Howard created the first armored suit of its kind, called the Hydra Stomper. Steve Rogers became its pilot. Together, he and Captain Carter led missions through World War II that saw the easy defeat of the Red Skull and a victory overall. Captain Carter sacrifices herself similar to Steve in the main timeline and appears 70 years later. During all that time, Howard, who would likely possess his son's hobby of world protection, would make advancements to the Hydra Stomper suit, eventually evolving to a similar design that Tony would create. All the while, Steve Rogers would pilot the armor, fighting for the security of his country, and becoming the Iron Man. America's favorite lieutenant colonel was always destined to be a hero. However, there is likely a universe where instead of becoming Iron Man's sidekick, he became the armored hero himself. If Howard Stark was never killed by Bucky during the Cold War, he would have been around for a long time to continue to help raise Tony. We know that eventually these two found closure, meaning that from the beginning, Howard wanted the close bond with his son. However, these two could have created the Iron Man armor together. Tony and Howard could have invented the arc reactor together and developed the armor just before Tony was taken prisoner and held for ransom. Howard has shown us that he is reluctant to operate the machinery himself, so he would go to a trusted ally to go and rescue his son. Enter Tony's longest friend, James Rhodes. At this time, he was already a decorated military hero and would have been in the know about the Iron Man technology all along the way. He could suit up, go save Tony very publicly from the cave, and be deemed Iron Man by the public, with 2 of the universe's greatest inventors behind him. Remember in Iron Man 2 when Tony had to sit before a committee formed to determine what would become of the Iron Man weapon? In the regular timeline, Tony walked away from that easily victorious, and was able to keep his armor in his own hands. What if he didn't? What if the government determined that Tony's suit actually did need to be turned over? At the time, many government officials such as Senator Stern and Alexander Pierce were in the pocket of Hydra. However, once the Iron Man suit was turned over in the alternate universe, I believe Nick Fury would have fought hard enough to find it in his possession. With the Iron Man suit now working as a weapon for S.H.I.E.L.D. headed by the one-eyed master spy with trust issues, all it would need is a pilot. I believe Fury's #1 choice would be someone who has proved himself loyal from his very early rookie years. Agent Phil Coulson would be the obvious choice. He sided with Fury as far back as 1995 with the incident involving Captain Marvel. He proved to be Fury's right-hand man in dealing with the arrival of Thor and Tony. All of this, and he was close enough to Tony Stark that he could maybe convince Tony to work with him in the case of making upgrades. Therefore, in this scenario, Phil Coulson becomes Iron Man, under control of S.H.I.E.L.D. He may even survive Loki's attack and helps lead the revolt against S.H.I.E.L.D. when they are revealed to be controlled by Hydra. There is a possibility that without Tony Stark, there are several other intelligent characters that we haven't even seen introduced yet that could have kicked off the MCU in his place. An unexpected character who could have become the original Iron Man would be another character with a proclivity for metal suits. Dr. Doom is a smart enough person who could have filled that void. Without Tony to take up the spotlight, Victor Von Doom could have emerged long ago as being the brilliant ruler and inventor of Latveria. It would be Victor who would become the billionaire, the playboy, and even the philanthropist, if only for looks. Now, I don't believe Dr. Doom would ever become a straightforward hero, but he certainly could play the part of one. His brilliance could easily lead to him inventing technology similar to the Iron Man suit, which would allow him to raise Latveria to a world power. He would be seen as a superhero the world over until he eventually took his villainous turn. This would put huge distrust in the public of superheroes from the get-go. The Sokovia Accords could have been introduced long ago if Iron Man wound up being evil. In this universe, Victor could have changed the entire landscape of people trusting in heroes if he took Tony's place as the MCU's first hero. Aldrich Killian was, in a word, bad. He was a villain through and through, but he only became that because of the way Tony treated him on New Year's Eve in Burn, 1999. Tony ditching Killian on the roof lit a fire in him that drove him down this dark path. But what if there was no Tony Stark in this universe? Let's say Howard Stark died before he was able to have a child. Now, that leaves a path for several other intelligent characters to emerge. Aldrich Killian was just a man who wanted to use his extremis to cure disability, including his own. However, it was Tony that gave Maya Hansen the secret to unlocking the extremis that very same night. So without Tony, I don't believe Maya and Aldrich would get extremis working, and they would turn to something else. I believe Killian and Maya would focus on fixing disability through technology, similar to what Tony did for Rhodey in Civil War. I believe experimenting with this tech would lead to geniuses who are no longer on a villainous path to eventually coming up with similar technology to the Iron Man armor. Therefore, Killian goes from villain to hero and helps defend the country as the world's first Iron Man. Possible major changes to the MCU without Tony as Iron Man. A world where someone else besides Tony becomes Iron Man would look very different. For starters, New York would be overrun with Chitauri if Tony was not willing to possibly sacrifice himself during Loki's attack. Now, someone like Steve, Coulson, or even Rhodey would likely be willing to do that same sacrifice. Steve and Coulson proved in the regular universe that they're not against self-sacrifice. It is possible that no alternate Iron Man would be so deranged as to think Ultron was a good idea. Therefore, Sokovia may still be a country, and Pietro Maximoff may still be alive to help fight the good fight. Finally, half of the world could still be gone. Tony was integral to inventing time travel and reversing the snap that was Thanos' ultimate plan. Some alternates could make a noble sacrifice, however none of them invent time travel. Maybe Victor Von Doom is witty enough to unlock the secret, but if you think he would put his life on the line, then you are mistaken. He would probably help Thanos before he would sacrifice himself. Many alternate characters who become Iron Man could do pieces of what Tony did, but only Tony could put all those pieces together. There is only one Iron Man. In this universe, that is. What If opens up an insane amount of possibilities, and any other character could have been the MCU's first armored hero. Who do you think would make a great Iron Man in an alternate reality?